And all together as one church with everything inside of us, we say,
Amen.
You may be seated.
Doesn't Josh thank the band? Thank y'all. No, he doesn't do that? I feel like he does. Well, thank y'all. Especially because I didn't know what set they had picked. And I love that last song. Like, I find Jesus every time I sing that, so I was kind of jamming out in the tech booth. But that's a me thing. So first and foremost, I've said this before as I've preached in here before. My name is Cameron. I am now the new assistant youth director. I don't know what my title is, but I do stuff in this building. And I know you guys come here for that quality Josh Elder sermons, and they're usually 30, sometimes 40 minutes of just powerful message. I am new in the game, and everybody says that the longer you preach, the longer your sermons get. And I haven't preached very long, so you're looking at 15 minutes. Okay? I'm just making sure we establish that off the gate. This is going to be halftime. Okay? Also, this is new information. I had a horrible dream last night that I botched this. So if I'm prophetic in any way, we'll find out in about a couple of minutes. Next thing is I'm going to use props. Don't judge me. We'll get there. It's going to be confusing at first. So I'm going to start off by just saying, this was me about 10 days ago. So now to give context, 10 days ago I was in finals. I am a seminary student, and seminary is a lot of fun most of the time, except for finals week. And finals week is not really a week. It's like, for me at least, it was like 13 days. So it was like 2 weeks, and it was horrible. So I had two classes, an Old Testament class and then a missional formation class. So Old Testament, I had a research paper which had to be completely cited. Like literally, if I wrote a sentence, I had to put a footnote and cite something. And so pages upon pages of other people's information reworded and cited. I had a term paper for the missional class as well, which was I had to study a congregation. So it was a congregational research paper. So study a congregation, do interviews, and I had to do something called ethnographic research. And you know you're in deep when you're Googling the stuff that you're supposed to be doing, like what is ethnographic research? Like you don't ask the professor that because you're supposed to know, I'm sure, but I didn't. So, and then I had a 4.5-hour Old Testament final. I will repeat that in case anybody missed that. 4.5 hours of me and the Old Testament and questions. Does that sound like fun for everyone? And then I had another class, and I had to write a integration proposal, basically about involving the community. And this was all in basically a 13-day time span I had to do all this. And so I was freaking out. And I would basically go to work, and I would come home from work, and I would go into my office, and then I would stress at my computer. I'd just be plugging away. This is how people work on computers. It's a thing. And I would just work and work and work, and then it'd be like midnight, and I'm like, all right, I gotta sleep, and I'd go to sleep, and I'd wake up, and I'd go to work, and then I'd go back to the office and just work. And I immediately realized I was completely out of balance, and there was something off, because I was just struggling more and more and more to write and to talk and to communicate anything that was going on inside of me or any of these thoughts that I thought I should have. I mean, I've been in this class all semester, and I realized, okay, what's the balance? So I start thinking back, and I realize that historically speaking in my life, I have been terrible at finding this balance that I've been struggling with. Before I came to St. Timothy full-time, I worked as vocational rehabilitation, which means I worked with people with mental and physical disabilities in employment development. So we did job development, job coaching, we did advocacy to different organizations. And then I also worked here on the weekends. And so I worked 7 days a week. And I found towards the end of that span of my life, there was just very little fruit coming from anything I was doing. It was such a grind. Every day was miserable. And I didn't know why I lost it. I didn't know what the problem was. I was working at a church, and I was working in this great field, and I'm like, why is this so painstaking at times? And I realized, again, it was that balance. And I know I can't be the only one, because our lives are full of obligations. We have family obligations. I have 2 small children. I have 2 under 2. Isn't that a thing people say? Okay, well, I say it. I have 2 under 2, and so that takes a lot of my time and energy. And then obviously I have a wife that needs love and attention, so I got to give some of that over there. And then, I have a job, and I'm in school, and I know we all have various job responsibilities that take up a lot of our time, the hustle. And then there's our community life. We have friends and relationships that we value, and those things don't happen without time and investment. And then we have our ministry, each and every one of us, whatever shape or form that takes for us. we're all in relationship with God and each other, and so we have to carve time for our ministry. And so we're just flooded by obligations, and I think we all often struggle with finding that balance, that peace that we need. And so that's going to bring us to our scripture today. I usually have it on my iPad, so I'm trusting Rebel to throw it on screen. Awesome. Okay, this is John 15, chapter 4 and 5. Now this is Jesus, when he's talking to the disciples, he's kind of like done a lot of that hardcore ministry stuff that he did, and this is kind of coming to his end with the time with his disciples, and he's really trying to hammer some stuff in. He's trying to go over some stuff that they're going to need moving forward to understand their lives and to have a fruitful and quality ministry. And so this is what he says: "Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me." And then 5 says, and this is the meat of it right here, "I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. From apart from me, you can do nothing." So let's unpack that for a second. I brought props. I'm a prop kind of guy. So this is a strawberry plant, Rebel? Yeah. Strawberry plant. And it's not like as viney as, I'm not a herbologist, I don't know, horticulture. Yeah, I can't Google it right now. I have an iPad. But anyway, I'm not a plant guy. I have a farmer friend for that. But this plant is fed by the stems and the nutrients. This is how these leaves go out. This is how the plant works. It literally takes in the nutrients and it disseminates it out through its branches. And then those branches will go on to bear fruit. So if you remember me 10 days ago, I'm not attached to anything. And I realized that was the issue, that I didn't have the nutrients I needed. I didn't have the source that I needed. I wasn't being fed. And so this branch is dying. It's going to pour out, but unless it connects to the vine, it's going to die. It's just going to pour out all it has, and it's going to run out, and it's going to die. So the problem then becomes, how do we stay connected to the vine? Because God's not like a physical vine. Like I can't make sure I'm tethered in or anything like that. Like there's something else that we have to do to stay connected to the vine. And so I want to hang out in that scripture. Can you throw it back up for just a second? The key word there that hits me is abide. And in Greek, abide can break down into a couple of different root meanings, but I think all of them hold enormous value. Basically, abide is to remain, to stay, and to trust. So if we take our source, our vine, and everything we need, our goal is to remain in that, to trust in that, and to stay in that. And that's how we go out, and that's how we get our energy and our everything so we can bear fruit. So then the question becomes, okay, that's great in theory. How do we do that? How do we apply that to our lives, and what does that even look like? And I think the first thing we have to do is understand the sacred in our lives. And I say that because I think often, at least growing up for me, sacred always meant it was a very church term, like sacred things, like the communion cup was sacred, and the pulpit was sacred, and the sanctuary was sacred, and there were sacred things, and it was all church related. But sacred, by definition, because I already Googled it, is connected with God or dedicated to a religious purpose, and so deserving veneration. So sacred just means connected to God. So that means that sacred isn't limited to these churchy terms. Sacred is anything and everything that connects us to God. And so I think about all the different ways we can do that. I mean, John Wesley, founder of the Methodist Church, took communion a ridiculous amount of times, like a day. I know we do it like once a month, but he took it several times daily to stay connected. And there's lots of ways we can connect. The typical churchy ways. We can sing and worship. That last song got me all hyped up, and I dig it. But we can read our Bibles, and we can come to worship services, and we can get plugged in. But it doesn't end there. It can be spending time with our family, praying with our family, dancing, art, painting, whatever draws you closer to your Creator and makes you feel that love and that passion that energizes you. That is sacred because it brings you to God. And so once we understand what the sacred in our life is, then the question becomes, okay, what do I do with that sacred? And the key is we have to flip our understanding of rest. You know, I say rest, and I think about, at the end of a horribly long day or something, I go home and I throw myself on the couch and I turn on Impractical Jokers because it's the best show on TV, and I laugh and everything like that. And that's physically restful. You know, I unplug from that. But I'm not revived by that. I'm not energized by that because I'm not connecting to that vine. I'm just a branch in rest. And so we have to understand what true rest is. True rest is finding those sacred things in our lives. And we have to make sure that we do rest first. And so an example for that, and this is vetted through my wife. I'm not going to get in trouble for using her as an example. My wife is a grade A disciple student, meaning she does all of her disciple homework at 11:59 the night before disciple class. You know, it has like the day 1, read this scripture, day 2, read this. No. Day 6 is everything. Day 7 is go to class and don't freak out. And so she stays up all night. And I have this weird thing where I can't go to sleep unless she's asleep or everything's at peace in the house. I'm a weird guy. I don't know what to say. But I can't go to sleep until she's asleep. And so she's up all night. She's reading. I'm like, I'm so tired. And she's like, I'm almost done. And I'm like, I don't believe you. And so finally she finishes. And then what does she want to do? She wants to talk. Because she just read all this scripture. And it's awesome. And it's powerful. And it's moving. And I'm like, boo. We have 2 children and like jobs. I have to sleep. And so, but I'll talk to her because it's important. And so we talk for a few minutes, and then we go to sleep. And the next morning, she still knows what she read. She still experienced that, but that passion and that energy, it just isn't the same. Because she slept on it, she's moved on, it's not where she's focused. She's not as connected as she was the night before. And that's the trend that we have in our society is we rest at the end of the day, we rest. We just unplug real quick and physically unwind. But rest, we have to connect with God. We have to make time for the sake, and we have to rest first. Because rest is what gives us our energy. Rest is what sends us out to where when we go to work and when we go to do things, we're not just a branch pouring out to die. We're a branch that is being fed by God and that connection and that relationship and that love to bear some really cool fruit. And that is in every way. And I'm not just making this up. This isn't like a Cameron term that I'm just throwing out there and like, look at my cool new ideas. This is scripture stuff. Because if you look at creation, he created man on day 6. What is the next day? Day 7. What was day 7? Sabbath. The first thing God did with mankind was rest. He said, we're gonna divvy up the world. We're going to talk about all the stuff we need to do and get to work. But first, I want y'all to rest with me, to connect with me, to have a relationship with me. And this carried on. I mean, in the Hebrew calendar, day started the night before because they believed that you would rest before your work. You would energize, you would connect, you would make time for the sacred in your life in order to work. And I know there's a lot of things in society that hold us back from that. I know I struggle with them so much. I mean, rest balance for me is usually an unhealthy one, but it's one I'm very aware of. And it's one I'm very honest about, and I genuinely make the efforts. But there's a lot of stuff that holds me back. There's guilt, and I think we can all feel guilt sometimes when stuff needs to get done, and if I put it off, am I letting this person down, or am I letting that person down, or am I dropping the ball if I don't do it? I think the main one, at least for me, and I think a lot of people feel this too, is fear. You know, I think that the concept of a Sabbath, right? A day off, a day where you unplug. I am terrified of that. The world will stop spinning if I stop doing. What's going to happen if I don't personally do every single thing? It can't possibly be done. But then I go back to that word abide again. And what was one of the definitions of the word abide is to trust. So I have to combat that fear. I have to combat my anxiety about it and trust that I need rest. I need to connect. And the world is going to keep spinning, regardless if I do everything or not. And so I think about if we truly learn and apply that word, abide. And we think about this plant. This is a strawberry plant. I like strawberries. My kid likes strawberries. This branch isn't going to make strawberries because it's slowly dying, because it's not connected to the vine. It's not being fed. It's not being sourced. We have to rest and then go out and make wonderful, beautiful fruit. We do this in the highway a lot, and I think we've done it before here, and I think we're going to do it again just because it's awesome. We're going to take 120 seconds, which is basically time, where we're just going to sit. And I want us to think about two things while we sit, not talk. I'm not going to talk. I'm done talking. I want you to think about what are the sacred things in your life. What things bring you closer to God? What things fire you up and give you that energy and that passion to go out and love and work in this world and bear fruit? And then what things hold us back from that rest? What things keep us from centering first and working second? So we're going to take 120 seconds. When we're done with that, we're going to pray, and then I'll close this in worship. But remember, guys, stay in the vine, because that is how the fruit is made. Let's take 120.